The practice of meditation is not a practice of meditation unless it's done consistently. Obviously, right? Any practice is not a practice unless you're doing it consistently. And so spiritual practice is not a practice unless you're doing something spiritual consistently, right? And meditation is part of it, but also practicing being a student is part of the process. Consistency is everything in meditation. If you do it consistently and you really give your attention and energy to the teachings, right? As time passes, you'll begin to notice that things begin to change for you, that you begin to be more awake, you begin to be more aware, you begin to see what's going on, the dots start to connect. You start to see that there is a relationship between the way you are and the way your life is. When I worked in the prison system for 32 years, one of the things I used to say to the inmates is, did you ever stop and take note of the fact that every time something went wrong in your life, including ending up here in prison, you were there? Starts to become suspect, right? Everything changes, but the one constant is you're there whenever the shit hits the fan. Maybe it's time to take a look and see if there is a relationship between you, the way you are, who you think you are, the way you behave, and the way your life goes. And one of the things the teachers of these teachings say is that if you begin to practice a spiritual practice, and begin to practice meditation, that things start to clear up. You start to naturally be different. You start to naturally see things differently. You start to naturally stop being so crazy. And so life gets easier. So this is enough of a reason, as far as I'm concerned, to practice meditation, because as a psychologist, one of the things that I can tell you with certainty, because I've been a psychologist for 40 years, is that if you practice meditation consistently, and if you really commit yourself to learning the teachings that go along with the practice, it will be psychotherapy. You will go through a psychotherapeutic process. You will have to go through a psychological process, because who you thought you were will start to be clearly not who you really are. And the process of coming out of what you thought was true, the process of coming out of who you thought you were and being who you really are, is psychotherapeutic, right? Because that's psychological. What changes? Thinking changes, doesn't it? Yeah. Thinking changes. What changes? Behavior changes. The way you relate to life changes. The way you relate to other people changes. And because all that's happening, you begin to experience happiness, not because of what is happening in your life. No, you bring the fun to the party instead of going to the party to get the fun. You start out happy and then you live, instead of trying to be happy and get happy. So questions about meditation, questions about the teachings. Everybody here is in a different place. Some of you have been coming here for almost all the 5 years. Some of you are brand new. Some of you are in the middle, right? So everybody's in a different place. Everybody is in a different place in terms of meditation, whether you have an established practice or not. I was talking to somebody. Well, one of the things that I need to learn to do is to ask my clients, whether it's in my psychotherapy practice or in my teaching, to ask my students, do you have an established meditation practice? In other words, are you doing this every day? Yeah, and if you're doing it every day, or you're doing it for a set period of time, because that's important. Otherwise, your mind will talk you out of the practice. Because if you're not doing it every day, if you don't establish a meditation practice, there's no wheels, there's no training wheels on your bicycle. And you don't know how to balance yet. So all you're going to do is be putting your foot down, putting your foot down, putting your foot down, feeling frustrated because you can't figure out how to ride this bicycle. You just don't understand balance. If I just could understand balance, maybe I could ride this bicycle. It's not going to happen. You have to have something to support you until you understand balance. You have to have something to support you until you can see things clearly for yourself. Avoiding anything doesn't get you anywhere, right? So this isn't about avoiding social. And when people go to retreats, they're not going there to avoid anything. They're going there to face something. Because what they've been avoiding is what they've been busily busy in their life not to pay attention to. See, because one of the things that's important to understand about this is that if I say to you, look, give up your identification and your attachment to everything that you've been identified with and attached to up until now in your life. And if you do that, you'll experience this thing called enlightenment and you'll be happy and everything will work. You'd have to be a fool to do that. No, you have to be a fool to do, because you're going to leave all that and where are you going to go to, right? Yeah, so one of the things, and that's why the talks are important. You have to establish another alternative reality, so that when you leave something, you can feel confident and comfortable that you're leaving something and there's something there that you will go to. And the ego won't let that happen unless where you're going to go to has enough reality to it that it seems as though you'll still exist, you see? That's the ego protecting you, right? The ego's trying to keep you surviving, right? And so it's doing its job. And so we ought not to put the ego down. The ego's nothing but a program running, right? And often the ego is made to be the enemy, and we have to kill the ego, or we have to get rid of the ego. No, that's never going to happen. So if that's the approach that you're taking, you will fail. That's never going to happen, because as long as you're in this world, living in time and space and with a physical body, along with all of that, you will have an ego until you stop breathing. So if you try and get rid of that, that's going to fail, right? So you can't get rid of the ego, right? And the key here, and there's a lot of teachings that talk as if you do have to kill it or get rid of it. No. The true teachings say there's nothing that needs to be gotten rid of. No. All you have to do in order to wake up and see things as they are is realize that you are not the ego. You don't have to get rid of it. You can't get rid of it, right? But the recognition and the realization is that you are not that. You are not a psychological entity. You are not a physical body. These things have to be seen directly. If you listen to great teachers, and I will be sending you a link to a teacher that I've been studying recently, who is an Advaita Vedanta teacher out of New York, who's really powerful in terms of his ability to present the rational mind with an argument about reality that's irrefutable, right? And so one of the things that happens in these teachings is that a lot of these gifted masters and teachers can walk you through the process of understanding the inevitable truth that can't be refuted, right? Can't be refuted. So that's a part of the process here, is that the ego has to be massaged. The ego has to be accepted as inevitable, and the ego has to be helped to relax, so it doesn't have to keep trying to survive. The ego can be reorganized, since it's a program. It can be reorganized so that the program is adjusted to accept the fact that it now has a real source other than the program itself. And so one of the ways that these teachings and practices have been talked about is that you and I and most of humanity is disconnected from the source. You think you're the source. You think you're the source. You're playing God, right? You think your actions and your behavior, that you're the originator of your actions, you're the originator of your thoughts, you're the originator of your behavior. And that's a big mistake, and that's why it doesn't work out very well. So through these practices and through these teachings, you begin to see that if you let go of your misunderstanding about who you are, and if you let go of your misunderstandings about what is real and true, it becomes possible for you to reconnect to the source. In Christianity, they talk about this in terms of accepting Jesus as your Savior, right? That's the source, right? Jesus is the Son of God. You accept Him, you accept the Father, right? That's the Christian view, right? There are many ways to talk about this, right? That the source can be talked about in terms of God. It can be talked about in terms of the source. It can be talked about in terms of consciousness and awareness. It can be talked about in terms of many different words. What the language of it is doesn't matter. What matters is that that it is realized, that it is seen to be true and real and available, and more than any of that, that it is in the end experienced to be what you are. That's the final understanding. That this business of self-realization, that this business of coming out of the dark and into the light, that this business of waking up to the truth about who you are and the truth about how life is, brings you to a place where you realize that you're the truth, that you are the truth, that the awareness that is aware of your body, the awareness that's aware of the breath in the body is you. The awareness that's aware of life is you. The awareness that is aware of everything is you. And the mistake that people make is they identify with something that is in awareness instead of awareness. Identify with something that's in awareness instead of awareness. Identify with the body, which is in awareness, instead of awareness. Identify with the thoughts that are in awareness instead of awareness. At any point, you could tell me a story, you could describe an upsetting situation that you're experiencing, and you could say, oh, how do I apply that? How do I apply these teachings and practices to this upsetting situation? And the answer is always the same basic, simple answer, right? In that situation, right, who are you? In that situation, who are you? If you pursue this and you really look to see what the answer is for yourself, and you go through a process of realizing that your misunderstanding about who you are is the problem, it can lead you to the realization and the recognition that who you are is the awareness of the problem, not the problem. And the awareness of the problem doesn't have a problem. The awareness that you and I are doesn't have a problem. It's the thinking, and the thinking involves you believing you are something you're not, and then with that misunderstanding, attempting to live in the world. It won't work. And that only happens when you're in the thinking activity. So one of the things that the teachings tell us and the practices tell us is practice not being in the thinking activity. Move your attention away from thinking. To what? To the breath in the body. When you move your attention to the breath in the body, you're being the awareness, not the person that the thoughts say you are. You're being what you really are. And when you're being the awareness, miracles happen. When you're being the awareness, it's possible to have an awakening, like Eckhart Tolle talked about. Yeah, because how it happened for him is that, he was depressed and desperate and thinking about killing himself. And it's often the case that these awakenings happen when people are in those situations, right? That's what happened for Ramana Maharshi, for those of you who are aware of that story. That's what happened for Eckhart Tolle. And he said he was about to kill himself, and the thought arose in his mind, I can't, how did he say it? I can't live with myself anymore. Something like that. And after the thought arose in his mind, for the first time it caught his attention, like, wait a minute, I can't live with myself anymore. There's two. There's the me who can't live with me, and there's the me I can't live with. What's this? Is there two of me? And at that moment, he had a direct connection to the truth. He had a non-dual experience at that moment. It just happened, right? And when that happened, it's like he became the consciousness that was aware of everything that was happening instead of what was happening. It just happened like that. That's not the way it goes for most of us, right? But most of us aren't on the verge of committing suicide either, thank goodness, right? But one of the things he said is that never changed. It never went back to the way it was again. And he was never depressed again, and never anxious again, and naturally happy without a reason to be. And then, of course, he wrote books and became a teacher of these things and so forth and so on. But one of the things he teaches is don't wait. Don't try and be Eckhart Tolle. No. Listen to what the teachings tell us. The teachings tell us that you can practice being spiritual. You can practice being a spiritual being in a human life instead of being a human being. Instead of being a physical body in a physical world in time and space, you can practice the truth, which is that you are a spiritual being and you don't live in time and space and you're not physical. And then, of course, as Jesus Christ said, I offer you life everlasting, because if that's true, it means death isn't real. I like to go right to the end. Right? Because the mind that you and I have needs to get a good deal before it's willing to put too much out, right? So if you're not willing to consider life everlasting a good deal, right? Then I don't know, maybe I need to talk to you. Right? You can't get a better deal than that, can you? No. Not to mention being happy. Well, but that's part of the deal, that you also get to be happy without a reason. Yeah, you get to have peace of mind, right? So it's a good deal, but it's not free lunch. It's a good deal, but it's not going to happen unless you make the kind of effort necessary to break out of the delusional state of mind that you're in, to break out of the insane condition that you exist in. So when I say the insane condition you exist in, I'm saying that what you call normal, what's generally considered normal, is insane. Look at the news tonight, right? The people that you look at on the news, including world leaders, are considered from a mental health perspective to be normal. God help us, right? If our leadership is that crazy, where are we? Okay? So, and that crazy isn't just them, it's most of humanity, right? And the reason it's most of humanity is because crazy doesn't see crazy. Crazy people don't see how crazy their leaders are, because they're as crazy as their leaders. That's why they voted for them. So to get out of this, you got to go sane. In order to go sane, you have to first see that the craziness is killing you. You have to see that the craziness is causing your life to be a miserable experience. And so that leaves you in the situation that most of humanity is in, which is that you get up in the morning, right, and you make the best of it. Let's face it, that's the reality. You get up in the morning and you cope. You make the best of it. You look forward to the end of the day. You look forward to the end of the week. You look forward to the end of the year. You'll even look forward to the end of your life. How crazy do you want to get? You look forward to the end of your life. When you practice meditation, you look forward to the end of the practice instead of practicing it. Right? So this is insane, right? So we got to come out of the insane state and learn how to live in reality. And reality is only what's happening right now. That's why paying attention to the body is important, because the body is what's happening right now. It's a way of anchoring yourself to reality, the present moment. You'll see when people ask questions, I always answer in the same way every time. I have to take you back to the speaking that you are, because it's in the speaking that you can hear the lie, right? And Bob's no exception to that, you know, I mean, I really appreciate the fact that you're willing to let me use you. But he's a typical guy, right? And he said, if I'm coming from awareness, did you hear him say that? Who is this who's coming from awareness? See, the trick gets played so quick you don't see it. You get hijacked so fast you don't see it. So it rolls right out of your mouth. Oh, if I'm coming from awareness, and then you think the question is meaningful. No, whatever the question is after that is already in the toilet. It depends on who you're being. If you're being who you are, you don't have to divorce yourself from anything. Because who you are sees things for what they are. Who you are sees things for what they are. Who you are sees an opinion as an opinion and knows it's an opinion. Who you are sees your own thinking as an opinion and knows it's an opinion. Who you are sees your own thought process as a process in which you're interpreting what's going on, not a clear perception of what's going on. Yeah. Everything you do is programmed. You are a machine. You are a machine. Everything you do is programmed. Everything you do is coming from your conditioning and your DNA. It's playing out in your mind, And part of what plays out in your mind is the misunderstanding that the character that you consider yourself to be is actually conscious. And that character, it has awareness, right? That's the mistake you keep making. That the character you consider yourself to be is actually conscious. No, it's not. If I interview somebody that's playing a role in a movie, and I interview them about the character they're playing, right? Would I think that the person that's the actor playing that character thought that they were really that character? That would be ridiculous. But that's what you do all day. That's what you do all day. You think the role you're playing and the act you're acting is real and has its own consciousness. No. That's why things go the way they go. There's an awareness of the whole thing that's the real thing. The awareness of the whole thing is always there, aware of the whole thing. All you have to do is move your attention off the script and off the belief of what you are and pay attention to what's actually here. The awareness that's actually here. And reorganize things, recondition, train the brain. Train the brain to be connected to reality. And life will start to work. When you start to live life the way life is, there aren't any problems. It's your expectations about how life should be that's causing the suffering. Life is never going to be the way you think it should be. It's time for you to get clear. Life is never going to be the way you think it should be. It's always only going to be the way it is. And if you see that to be so and therefore you let go, right? Remember what I said, it's like letting go of something. If you see that to be so and therefore you let go of continuing to believe that life should be the way you think it should be, you might end up finding yourself happy because there's no reason to have a problem anymore. Life is the way it is and I experience it to be that way. Versus life is the way it is and I don't like it. Isn't that your life? No, but I am serious about that answer. How do you live? You get rid of the one that thinks you need to know how to live and start being the one that knows how to live. These interactions are important, right? Because, and this is why you need a guide or a teacher when you practice meditation and you get involved in these teachings. Because when you get involved in these teachings and you have the interactions with the teacher, you will express certain things, and the teacher will be like a parent that's guiding the child back onto the curb. You see? You will keep going off the rails. That's the way it is. Right? And so through the interaction with the teacher will say, as I said to Bob, no, Bob, come back. Come up, stop thinking you're something you're not, and then those problems you have will clear up on their own. You see?